Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here. So let's talk a little bit about the future of work for the end of the day. First of all, I would like to talk about the challenge of work, because creating a machine being able to do what a human is able to do is a real challenge. And from now, it was a real difficulty to implement AI at the workstation. So why now should it be different? This is what we are doing. We are going to try to understand to begin, and then we will talk about impact on workers. So just to remind, the definition of AI produced in 1956 during the Dartmouth Summer Project, the moment the artificial intelligence discipline was designed as a new discipline. So the definition, the official one, is the construction of computer programs that engage in tasks that are currently more satisfactorily performed by human beings, because they require high-level mental processes such as perpetual learning, memory organization, and critical reasoning. So this was in 1956. And in 1958, a very important person in artificial intelligence, but also a Nobel Prize in economy, Herbert Simon, said, machines will be able within 20 years of doing any work a man can do. It did not happen. So why? Why it did not happen? First challenge for AI is what we call scaling. When you are trying to develop an AI system, you begin with a model. And this model is a simplification of reality. And little by little, you will improve your system and you will increase this model. And you try to touch real world. But every time you try, it's possible to embed this AI system in real world, it's failed. So that was the first limit, scaling. And it's still very challenging. Second one is knowledge. And we can summarize this challenge by the Polanyi's paradox. Polanyi said, we can know more than we can tell. It means that when you ask a worker to explain the secret of his heart, he will say things, important things, but not the most important one. Because the most important part of his knowledge is tacit. It is not possible to explain it to a knowledge engineer, for instance. And to be more complete, the more you know, the more it is difficult to explain what you know. The less you know what you know. So that was really a challenge in the first approach of AI, because you need people, you need experts to define some rules in your AI system. And it was very difficult to do it. And third, the know-how. We used to summarize the know-how challenge by the Moradek paradox. Very good concept for dinners if you want to keep people's attention. It means that it's most simple to ask a robot to do something that is very complex for you, than asking something which is very simple for you. You can code a program to play chess, and it will play chess very well, but it will be unable to move and to play really, physically. Because this is manipulation, this is perception, and it's very hard. So why is it so hard to make a robot doing these very simple things? Because we are very good with two things, thinking in movement. Why are we so good at this task, thinking in movement? Because this is what we are as a species. We run in the forest and we solve problems. Of course, since the last maybe 50 years, we think that we are better thinking in an office, in a chair, comfortable chair, but we are not so good at it. We are very good by thinking in movement. So this is a biological definition. This is what we are biologically. But it's very difficult to transfer this knowledge to robots. So this is the Moradek's paradox. So maybe we think that now that will be different. So the first moment of AI, it was what we call the symbolic approach. The symbolic approach was dominant until the beginning of this century. The idea is to identify rules behind a task and to try to embed these rules in a program. And we are trying to duplicate the brain of an adult, okay, with using specific rules to solve a problem. The problem is that, for the reason I just explained, it's very hard to identify rules in tasks, in activities. So now we are using another approach, which was created in 1956, but Minsky and McCarthy, they thought that it was a bad approach because, yes, it was less performant at the beginning than logical approach. But things change. And what's changed? First thing that changed is big data. Big data is an extraordinary opportunity to have example, to train the model, to educate the model with data. So this connectionist approach is more based on duplicate the brain of a child that will learn new things with data. So data is like a book with pictures you use when you want to learn something, to teach something to your kids. And you will use this data to teach things to the AI system. So this bio-inspired learning approach is, for many people, the best way to face the previous challenge. You know, the Maravic's paradox, Polanyi's paradox, and the problem of scaling. So that's why many people think that it is time for AI to go to work. And the best example was the Google car, because driving a car was a very specific example of Polanyi's book about the tacit knowledge. He said, when you want to explain how to drive, you explain things, but it's not enough to drive. You need experience. And this is exactly what happened with the Google car. That's why so many books were published after the Google car, because it was time for the end of the Polanyi's paradox. So there are still new challenges now. The first challenge is what we call the explicability challenge. Of course, we have this neural network embedded in a new AI system, but the problem is that when you receive a recommendation from this kind of connectionist model, you can't ask why. You can have explanation in something you will understand. Even for computer science is difficult, but for ordinary workers, it's more difficult. So the explainability challenge is very difficult, and it's now a wall to develop AI system in industry or in activities with a high level of responsibility. Because when you are responsible for the consequences of something, of an action, you need to understand why before you accept to take the responsibility. So this is the black box challenge. Second one is certifiable AI. It means that all these models are statistic, and they are not very far from the truth for the good, from performance. Sometimes they perform a lot, but sometimes they're totally wrong. And it's very hard to generalize a performance. And the last one is sovereignty, because we need to have European technology. Because when you use AI, like OpenAI at the moment, I think you all use ChatGPT, don't forget that you give all the data to American. Of course, we are more or less partners, but sometimes more or less than more. So it's something we have to consider, having our own technology to be a superpower in the world. And for the moment, we are not. American and Chinese are stronger than we are. So now, what about the impact on workers? I used to summarize them by 5 stories, and this is exactly what I'm going to tell next, 5 stories. But first of all, are we ready? In France, we have a roadmap that was created and managed by a mathematician called Cédric Villani. He's a very famous mathematician, and he said, we were going to cross great transformation, and we are marginally prepared. And we have to consider this very important revolution and the impact on workers. And at the moment, we are not ready. That's why in 2021, former Prime Minister Elizabeth Borne created the Labor AI, which I am the head of science, to help France to be ready for this kind of challenge. So first of all, of course, the first story we always have in mind is AI, are machines going to replace us? And the way people are trying to study this kind of impact will have great consequences on the results. The first great survey, global survey, even if it was American statistics, but with a very high level impact, was based on what we call an occupational skills nomenclature and the idea of 3 bottlenecks. What are bottlenecks? This the current limit of technology. It means that technology will stop, okay? And that will be the space for workers. So what are these bottlenecks? Relational skills, creative skills, and perception and manipulation skills. It means that the more you have this kind of skills in your activity, the less you will be exposed to automation. With this methodology, the type of projection is high job losses. And I'm pretty sure you know this survey, very important one, in 2013 by Benedict Frey and Michael Osborne, saying that in 1 decade or two, 47% of total US employment could be automized. So, of course, it had a big impact. I don't know if they use this methodology in Spain or Portugal, but for France, it leads to 50%. And between 42 and 50%, it depends on the cabinet of the expertise. But now we use another approach, what we call a task-based approach. So we are asking people with activity survey what they are doing for real. And we have other kind of projection, few job losses and high transformations. And this is what used OECD. OECD said that in average, for average countries of OECD, it will be 14% of job destroyed, but it means that more than 70% of tasks of this job could be done by AI. But 32% of jobs will have a high level of transformation. It means that between 50 and 70% of the task could be done by AI. So it's still a big transformation, okay? Third of the active population. Second story is the dominated workers, meaning that you will be controlled by AI. You still have a job, but you have to obey the order of the AI. So, of course, there's this myth of singularity, meaning that in the future, AI will be independent, and it will create new AI, and it will be the end of it, like Terminator or Matrix. But this is not what we are working on. We are more working on other kind of domination. First one is active domination, meaning that managers, CEO, they will use AI to increase their control on workers. So that's why we're talking about Taylorism 4.0. Okay, this is the project. But we have another approach, meaning passive domination of AI. It means that it is not the manager's project, it's not the CEO's project, but it is the consequences of relation between the workers and the AI system. Sometimes it will be, the reason will be an excess of trust. Okay, I trust the AI system, it is good, and I follow it. Of course, if you don't trust yourself, it will have an impact on your trust on the AI system. It could be excess of caution. What will happen if I am wrong? I prefer following the AI system. It could be the effect of contentment. This is exactly what I observe with ChatGPT. It means, okay, it's not perfect, but it's efficient. And it will be very hard to do better. So I prefer doing something else. And I accept this not very good quality, but acceptable quality. Loss of situational awareness. It means that you still focus on the information coming from the AI system, and you are no longer observe your physical environment. You know, like when you are trying to park your car, you just watch the screen and listen to the beep, 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 but you don't look around you. And this is what happened for pilot in planes, you know. Since we have a cockpit glass in 1988, we reduce accident. But when the system asked the pilot to take the control, he failed because he's no longer aware of environment. Loss of expertise, I don't do anymore. I just check the machine. And being dependent on AI, it means that I can do my job without an AI system. So this is what we call passive domination. Third story is the augmented workers. And this is what we all want. Four kinds of augmentation. First one is remediation, meaning, okay, the workers is not able to do it alone, so we will give some support. For instance, if you have to design the level of cybersecurity of a new document in your computer, there's billions of data, it's very complex. So you have a program reading your document and defining the right level of cybersecurity. So it's hard for us because it's difficult for us to work with so many data. Rationalization, the idea is to reduce inter-individual variation of employees. You have good employees, you have young employees, you have employees with a lot of experience, but they can work overtime. They need holidays, they need a weekend. What happens when your best employees are not there? Maybe you can push some information with AI, or you can give a control to an AI system. Delegation, AI will perform tasks you don't like. You think you're losing your time when you're doing it, and you will have more time for high-value tasks. And the last one is cooperation. It means that human-machine teaming leads to higher performance. Okay, it's impossible for the machine to do it alone. It's impossible for a human to do it alone. But the human-machine teaming is a good team to reach higher performance. Fourth scenario is divided workers. It means that you will increase substitutable workers. You can replace workers by another. This is something that could happen. And it's what we are talking about polarization. It means that you will have a solid middle-class job will disappear, and you will be only elite jobs and very low skills job, but nothing in the middle. And this is a movement that's already existing, but maybe AI will increase it. So this is exactly what OECD said. If the labor market polarizes even further, some workers may end up stuck and low skill, low-paying jobs with little possibility of crossing the growing divide into jobs that provide sufficient income and well-being. So you will still have job, but not an interesting one and not well-paid one, without the opportunity to develop your talent. And last but not least, we rehumanize workers. So this is the last story, saying that maybe it's an historical opportunity to de-automate the workers, meaning pushing out the robot that is in our body when we have a feeling that we are working as a robot because we are always doing the same thing. So maybe this is an opportunity to become more human at work. So this is an hypothesis, and this is a scenario, and this is maybe the opportunity to re-evaluate non-cognitive intelligence, because AI is very good with cognitive intelligence, but very bad, for instance, with embodied intelligence, because it has no body. And using its body doesn't mean that you use your hand, but it means that you don't have the same kind of commitment in your task. So this is exactly what Bill Gates said. What the world wants is to take this opportunity to make all the goods and services that we have today and free up labor. Let us do a better job of reaching out to the elderly, having small class size, helping kids with special needs. You know, all those are things where human empathy and understanding are still very, very unique. So we have to think about us as a species, and what we are, and how we can develop this very specific talents, which are impossible to automate. So now some vision points for manager. First of all, on well-being, of course, it could impact professional recognition and making workers feeling that they are substitutable. So what we can do is to define new criteria, maybe based on the bottleneck, the three bottleneck I presented you before, creativity, relationship, and 3D intelligence working in non-structured environment. Second, feeling of disposition. I don't do the task anymore. So, of course, if you transfer some task to the machine, maybe the workers, they will be disappointed because they like this task and they want to do it again. So what can we do if we consider the situation? We can involve a worker in the AI integration project. Maybe the worker will be proud of it because it could be a new skills to be able to implement an AI system at the workplace, and we can anticipate training needs. If you need new skills to work with AI system, with machines, you can increase, you can give to the worker new skills with a training need, with a training professionalization. Third, risk, intimacy, surveillance, control. I am trust. Okay, we talk about tracing clauses and tracing products, but people, they don't want to be trusted. And of course, you have to inform how you use the data, and you have to be sure that the machine will integrate human values. This is very challenging. On performance now, the risk is the relational disengagements. People are no longer working together. I feel isolated because I work more with an AI system than with real human. For instance, if you use a chatbot to answer to your colleagues, of course, it will be more efficient, but it will reduce the relationships between people, and we need this. We need this as workers. That's why we are physically here, and we need to connect people not being physically here, because we need to be together. So what we can do is investing the we, with high quality, a good we, and limit the automation of social tasks. Non-accountability, I follow the recommendations. This is something that could happen if you are algorithm telling you what you have to do. You will feel that you are no longer responsible for the consequences of a task. So what you can do is participate to the decision-making process, making workers participating to this, valuing good AI challengers, the way you are challenging the AI. This is a new skills we call prompt engineering. Prompt engineering means you are not satisfied with the first answer of a system. You challenge it to reach a better result. And valuing suggestion for improvement. This is the way you can increase responsibility and accountability. And last is loss of autonomy. I obey the AI. So what you can do is valuing improvisation and spontaneity, and valuing creative association, workers plus AI. So it is hard because, of course, one day one of your employees will come and say, okay, I failed, I challenged the machine, I decided not to follow the recommendation, and I failed. And if you shout at this worker, he will stop challenging. He will say, okay, I stop, and next time I will just push the button. And you won't have this human-machine performance. So it's also a challenge for manager to find the good way to help workers to challenge the machine. Not too much, but you have to encourage him to challenge the machine. Last but not least, responsible AI, what we are doing to make it responsible. First of all, the European approach, there is a regulation, but it is prepared, and the beginning was in April 2021. I will talk a little bit about it, and I will conclude with what we are doing in the global partnership on artificial intelligence. So maybe you have seen this before. This is a pyramid, and it explains the main concept of European regulation called Intelligence Act. And it is based on the concept of risk. So first of all, there's unacceptable. Unacceptable risk means that AI could manipulate you, could control you with smart cameras, and this is unacceptable, or evaluate you, like in China, you know, with a social credit system, giving you some good score of citizenship. Because and if you don't have a good score, you will lose some rights. So this is forbidden in Europe, but you can use smart camera in some, for specific moments, terrorism friction, or if you are looking for kids, kidnap kids. But in France, during the Olympic Games, we are going to try, we have a specific window to try smart cameras, and we talk a lot about it, because people are afraid of becoming China. You have a high risk. So high risk means that it could have an impact on physical integrity or on human dignity. Physical integrity means that you will use AI for the security of, for instance, a nuclear power plant. If it fails, it will have an impact on people's life. And human dignity means using an AI, for instance, to judge your divorce. Okay, it can have a very high impact on your life, so it will have to respect many constraints. Third is limited risk with specific transparency obligations, and minimal risk, it is out of this regulation. To conclude, the GPI, the Global Partnership on AI, so it was launched by Emmanuel Macron and Justin Trudeau in 2018 when they led the G7 together, and they decided to create a new group, more or less the same than IPCC, you know, the same group for climate, but a group for AI, and a group of independent experts. So it was launched in 2020, more or less during the same date than this program. And we begin with confinement 2, and we have the mandate to find a good balance between AI opportunity for business and for people, and of course, ethical principles. So there are 4 groups: responsible AI, plus a specific one inside responsible AI about AI and pandemic crisis, data governance, the future of work, I remember this one, and innovation and commercialization. So what do we do in the future of work? Is creating a critical technical analysis to contribute to the collective understanding of how AI can be used in the workplace to empower workers and increase productivity, and how workers and employees can prepare the future of work, and how job quality, integration, health, and safety can be preserved. So we have, in this future of work working group, we have 6 groups. First of one is AI Observatory at Work. We are creating a catalog of real use cases of AI system at the workplace. Training for AI and AI for training, how AI can be useful for training, professional training, but also the impact of AI on professional training. Human-machine interaction, bias in AI use in the workplace, AI and working conditions, and the last one is creating a living lab on the future of work. I hope you will be able to visit this living lab maybe next year. Thank you very much.